Is he being called?
Has he got a Dyson fan in the back of his room?
Yeah, no, he has a Dyson fan.
God, he's a proper toy, isn't he?
All I want to do when I see one of those is throw a balloon through it.
Yeah, see what happens. I want to put my head in it. See what? I mean, they're not wide enough.
I imagine that it would just be like putting your hands in a Dyson
in a hand dryer thing. But you don't know until you've done it. And also, I think my head definitely my ears would never fit through one of those Dyson Airblades.
Maybe it would go through, but you wouldn't be able to get it back out, and you'd have to.
I'd be stuck just with very cold ears for the rest of my life.
Fan around the neck at all time. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show, kicking off your morning with Hobby Chat. Your host this morning are myself, the Mayor, and as my co-hosts we have Onod.
Hello.
And OT.
Hi everybody.
Everyone's favourite member of the podcast. Today we'll be chatting about some news, some hobby, and then we'll be looking at two legendary legions.
Just to interrupt you.
Yeah. What is it?
I just wanted to make sure that I couldn't possibly cut this intro in a good way, because that's kind of tradition.
Is that why you're interrupting me? Okay, good. Well, like I was saying, the two legions we'll be looking at are Defenders of Helm's Deep and Riders of Eomer.
It's
good
time for news.
The news? Very power finale.
Spoiler-free discussion.
Can we actually keep this one spoiler-free? Do you think we can actually do it?
Yeah.
Can we be quick as well, please? Because we're going to do an
talk
episode
about it next week. So yeah, let's.
We're going to do a whole episode on it next week, are we?
Yeah. It was okay. Some issues, better than most of the season. Probably a 7 out of 10.
I agree, but I'd go 7.5.
Oh, the decimals.
I think a 6.
Ooh.
I'm not hopping on the hype train that you two are hopping on. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but it's fine.
I don't know if I'm hyped. I'm just glad that it ended in a above average way, because it could have. Where
it didn't bomb.
The trajectory when you're looking at the middle of the season felt like it was gonna just sort of collapse in on itself. And that concludes the Rings of Power discussion. Wow, look at that! I won't actually have
well done, us.
That's great.
We're not spending an hour on news.
To be honest, it's about the same length as it is normally, just without the
shit
chat and we fill the gaps in.
I haven't had to cut out 15 minutes of anger.
Yeah,
good,
nothing's going to have to get cut.
So, other news, not really any, because we're filming this.
Nothing's happened.
Anything could have happened.
Brilliant.
That was a good job.
What a great news section. You're welcome, everyone.
I might just cut the whole thing. Okay.
No news this week.
Oh, no news. No news. Hobby. There might also be.
We've not done anything.
I've done a little bit. I glued some novels onto bases. That's
not that interesting. But anyway, Mayor, you're going to have to spin this out for 10 minutes.
Okay, well,
Go.
The Burrows and Badgers miniatures that arrived for myself and my partner, I have glued onto their bases, and I will be painting at least the Rabbit Archer this week. So hopefully there'll be a picture of that on screen next week. Otherwise, yes. So my list is 4 hares, and my partner's list is an otter, a rabbit, 3 hedgehogs, a bat, a couple other things that I'm forgetting, a fox. It's all very cool, and I'm looking forward to painting them because they're all very cool miniatures. The only thing I don't like is the fact that the metal they've used, I don't know what alloy they've used, but it's very, very bendy, which means I can get them into the position I want, but also means they're probably going to bend out of that position fairly easily. Also played a game of Kill Team with my friend. I had the new Intercessor Squad, which has 6 models, and he was using his Onod and OT are looking very interested in this. My friend had his Blooded, which are traitor guardsmen, essentially. And he had, I think, 12 or 13 models, including Ogrin. I tabled him and took 1 loss in return. My team are very, very forgivable in terms of how they play, and his are very unforgivable, squishy dudes that you really need to know how to play properly. So his army is very much a high skill ceiling, so it'd be interesting to see how he does with that in a few months' time. That's my hobby news for the week.
Important question: did you use a chess clock?
Yeah.
No, we didn't actually.
What's
Oh,
the
chess clock.
fucking point?
but how did you have
Why do
any
we bother?
It's a weird
You
one
feel the
because
rush when you press your side of the chess clock.
the first turn I think took an hour and a half.
Jesus Christ!
The second turn, well, there's only 4 turns in the game, in the whole game.
You killed everything in the first turn. So the second turn was very quick.
The first turn.
What is your friend thinking? It's like fuck, hour and a half. Well, I've done fuck all.
Well, no. The first turn is like it's you me in terms of activating models. It's not like SBG where you just all go at once. So, I think I killed 2 models in the first turn, and I killed 6 models in the second turn, and the rest in the third turn, and that's where we just called it because he didn't have any models left.
Yeah, it's a good place to call it.
Yeah. He was debating calling it before, but I was like, this next turn is going to be super quick.
Forced him to fucking.
No, he wanted to see out. Well, he had an opportunity to finish off the second guy, and he wanted to try out
Kill a second guy.
a little gimmick. So, well, hilariously,
it's like our fucking game of SBG where I was like, I could black out a second Royal Guard.
Yeah. So his sniper has a thing where he can shoot into a combat, a bit like the evil guys in SBG, except he has to use like a special ability to do it, and any shot he misses just goes into his own guy. It's not like a 50-50. So his guy hits on 4s, so the odds were he was going to hit himself at least a little bit. He hit himself twice and me twice, did no damage to me, but managed to kill his own guy in combat. So thematically, we're pretty sure it just pinged off one of my guy's shoulder pauldrons and killed his own guy. So it was a fun game regardless of that. He's used to me playing Tau, which he feels like are a bit bullshit.
Fun for you. It sounds fucking awful.
No, he said that he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it more than playing against my Tau. Because
it sounds like you're in like an abusive relationship where you're forcing the person to like play guilty.
Press the chess clock. Do it. Come on, we've got some models left.
We both had fun. I think my army's just much more forgiving. I think the more we play, the more he's going to get good with that list. So we'll see. But it was good fun, and the Space Marines are looking cool. So hopefully I'll paint those up at some point.
Good. OT, your hobby this week.
Well, yeah. Well, it's been a strong week financially.
You've spent money, or that
I've spent a lot of money. I've gained no money, but I've lost a lot. I bought Durin. I bought another box of Riv Knights, and I bought the match play guide in preparation for my tournament debut.
Why have you bought Durin? Tell us about that.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yes,
well,
please do. We need to stretch this out.
Okay.
What's the list?
Well, I
love the list.
I actually have 4 potential lists. I'll show you.
Oh, God, just tell us the one with loads of cover, please.
We don't need to cut out that much. We don't need to cut out
that.
Okay,
just one.
So basically, it's color-coded by how good I think the lists are.
Oh, God, it's so late.
Okay. Onod and I will decide which list you have to take.
No, just say one. Come on.
To be honest, we got it to the final list, which I think we're quite fun. Basically, it's like a tournament where you build up points gradually. You start at 444, then 666, then 888. And I don't have 888 of anything, so I'm going to have to ally. And I have quite a lot of dwarfs. I have quite a lot of Rivendell, so I'm going to ally the 2 together. The final list for 888 points is going to be Durin with 17 Burly Khazagard and a Dwarf Warrior with a banner and a shield. And then it's going to be Elrond with 13 Riv Knights, 12 of which have a shield. And that's exactly 888 points.
And the Khazagard, as we established last week, have the perfect stat line.
They do.
And they have Burly.
And
so they're +1 to wound. And Bodyguard. They're just so fucking good. And how many points are they? 12 each?
No,
13.
13 with
still really good, I think.
Yeah. The list at 444 is quite funny. It's Durin with 2 Burly Khazagard and Elrond with 3 Riv Knights.
You don't have to ally at 444. You just have the dwarves or something.
No, because the way it works is unfortunately to fit them all in later because you can't remove stuff. I have to put Elrond and Durin in and then just build the warbands
heroes up. Or
well, so because the way the points work, I wouldn't be able to fit in everything I wanted later if I only put in Durin or Elrond earlier on. So
Okay.
I have to put them both in to make it work for later on. So to be honest, I think I'm probably going to get stomped in all of the games, but I'm especially going to get stomped in the early game where I have 7 models. And
it might be good. You never know.
Yeah, it's true.
I think most people will bring something fun.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
see.
so hyped for Durin. Honestly, like, I think he might be really good. Like, yeah, he's the fact he's D9.
I think he's a little bit overcosted. I think
he is. But like, and he's got the Warhorn. He causes terror. He's got the Master Forged Axe. He's D9, fight 6. Like, I think
strong.
I think it will be fun. I think it will be fun. But I think I'm going to lose quite a lot, and I'm okay with that.
I'll just bring my. I'll bring my ballistas.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That would be a problem. But yeah, so that's been, I've bought, Durin, another box of Rivendell Knights and the Match Play Guide. And then I have primed, and actually by the time this goes out, I will have painted and sent pictures of, I think I'm going to do either Elrond on foot or Elrond mounted. I'm not sure which I'm going to paint first, but probably Elrond on foot, because I've found
that is a promise, considering that I'm probably going to have done this tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine. I found a really good painting guide from Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, who I think is the guy who used to do the GW ones, and he's actually just done a really good guide that's useful for people who aren't like that high level painters. So
did you use two thin layers?
Two thin coat.
Yeah, that's what he talks about.
I know it's basically a meme.
yeah.
Thin your paints.
Yeah. I will thin my paints. Don't worry. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But currently, all I've done is spend money and done no actual hobby. So yeah, that's
I feel like spending money counts as part of the hobby. It should.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, arguably, it's one of the biggest parts of the hobby.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Also, the most unfortunate part.
The most addictive part. I've done nothing this week.
Good, fantastic.
You're not
even going to try and dress it up. You're not going to.
I didn't buy anything. I didn't even sit down at my painting table. I literally have not had enough time to do anything I wanted to do this week.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's depressing, isn't it? We'll move on. Good.
What are we doing first? Defenders of Helm's Deep or Riders of Eomer?
Yes.
Good. And who's doing what?
I don't have the book.
I don't have.
Well, you're not. Oh, it sounds like I'm doing both then.
I mean, you can send one of the picture.
No. I'll choose. It's all me.
Oh, okay.
Right.
This must be the only book you don't own, AT.
We'll do Defenders.
Actually, I don't own the Hobbit book because I had to send it back. I did actually get my refund though from Wayland.
Brilliant!
After the German book incident.
Have you also bought a normal book now?
No, I haven't. I was going to, but then it was over the price of delivery. So what's the point?
Wayland must be very confused. You were like, I bought this German book, but I'd like a refund, not an English copy.
Yeah, that's true.
I flicked through, and in German it looked pretty shit. So
I don't want the English version. Thanks very much.
I was slightly missold on the product.
Right.
Let's do Defenders, shall we?
Defenders
of Helm's Deep.
9 King's
Huntsmen.
9 King's Huntsmen. So
Keep going. Not prepared.
So, in terms of rules for building this list, we've got your force must include Theoden. Theoden is always the army leader. All models from the Legion must have the infantry keyword, so no cav. Defenders of Helm's Deep Legendary Legion may only have a maximum of 33% of its models with the Lauren keyword, so you can only take a third elves. So the army composition you can pick from are Theoden with heavy armor. You can give him a shield. Gamling, you can give him his banner. Aldor, who is the Rohan archer. I'll go over the 2 new models from this. Haleth is the other one. You've got the King's Huntsman, captain of Rohan, Aragorn Strider with armor. Obviously can't take his sword. Legolas, Gimli, Haldir, Galadriel captains, Warriors of Rohan, Rohan Royal Guards, and Galadriel Warriors. I'm assuming that only the elves can take elves, but it doesn't actually say that. So actually, I'm thinking maybe. So actually, you could take Aragorn with elves, for example, which is quite nice because it could be cinematic, like in the film. So then we've got some special rules. So fighting ranks. Friendly Rohan infantry models armed with throwing spears may use them as standard spears in addition to their normal use. However, if a model uses their spear as a throwing spear in a turn, they cannot use it as a standard spear in the same turn. So that is pretty good. Having spears in addition to throwing spears is a very nice bonus. Give them a volley. Models from this legion armed with either a bow, longbow, or elf bow may increase the range of that type of bow from 24 to 30, provided they have not moved that turn. A little bit thematic, very situational, but a bonus nonetheless. Fall back to the keep. If this force is broken, then warrior models from this force add 1 to their courage value. Additionally, if this force is broken, friendly warrior models may reroll failed courage tests while they're within 6 of Theoden. So that's the Legion.
Do you want to quickly run through those 2 profiles then?
Yes, I was just about to do that. So we've got Aldor Rohan Archer, who's the old guy who lets an arrow fly before the battle starts. I'm not really sure why everyone looks at him like he's done something wrong there, but so he's essentially got a warrior profile, move 6, fight 3, 5+, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. Pretty sure that's basically the same as a Rohan warrior. He's got 1/1/1 for his might, will, and fates. Fine, basically the same as like a Ranger of the North. Armor, sword, and bow, heroic accuracy. He's got 2 special rules. Unsteady nerves. Aldor must always shoot first in the shoot phase, even before heroic shoots are resolved. Not necessarily an advantage so much as just thematic, which is fine. Lucky shot. Aldor must reroll fail to hit and wound rolls when firing his bow, which is pretty good. So for 20 points, I feel like he's pretty much, because he's an independent hero, he's going to be deploying on his own, I think, for an independent hero, which is fine. You're pretty much probably always going to take him because he's just a slightly buff archer, I suppose. You've got Haleth, son of Hammer, who's the guy, if you don't know, that Aragorn's like, oh, that's a nice sword you have there. So he's got pretty much a... Oh, wait, I've just seen Aldor's a 5+ to hit with his bow. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
But he does get that like re-roll thing, doesn't he? So you can essentially say that if he's got a 33% chance, then you get 2 goes.
Yeah, so because he re-rolls to hit, I suppose he's a little bit better than a normal Rohan Archer. He re-rolls to wound as well, which is nice. So yeah, you're right. The re-roll makes him like a slightly better shoot value. So back to Haleth. So again, he's an independent hero. Move 6, fight 3, 4+, defense 4, 1 attack, 2 wounds, courage 5, 1/1/2, 1 might, 1 will, 2 fate. So a bit bulkier than Rohan warrior. He's 10 points more than Aldor, so he's 30 points. He has armor, sword, and bow, heroic defense. 2 special rules. There is always hope. While within 6 of Aragorn, he increases his attacks to 2, which is fine. You can make it so he's basically always within 6 of Aragorn. Fight to the last. At the start of the fight phase, if he's engaged in combat for the duration of the turn, Aragorn and other friendly Rohan infantry models within 6 add 1 to their fight value. Benefit ends immediately if Haleth is slain.
This is like a completely pointless thing to notice. Do you not think it's weird how they specify the rules that you can't take a model on horse, but then don't have any models with horse listed in their war gear?
It's a bit superfluous, isn't it?
Why bother specifying that? But anyway, who cares? Right, moving on.
Okay.
What do we think of the Legion? Some quick takes before we then bring in Eomer's riders.
In my Google document,
I've got it out in front of me.
Yeah. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this list, and like I'm more interested in your takes on it than like my own, because I think I've thought about this a fair bit, and I can't actually decide if it's a good Legion or not. I tried building the list, and I thought it was a bit fiddly, but like I like the theme and I like the characters, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe we leave for later on, but
I think it's quite a good list.
Yeah.
It's got downsides, but like it's no different to like taking like a dwarf list, for example, and it doesn't have cav. But the extra bow range you get and the access to like some of the best characters in the game is quite useful. It's a shame Aragorn isn't with Anduril in this list.
But like,
makes sense lore reasons, but it does kind of limit them a little bit. But
the bow thing is huge. Like 30-inch, because you got Legolas and Haldir, who are the two I've highlighted. Like that's pretty serious, because 30 inches. I mean, because of the way circles work, like you can hit a lot more at 30 inches than you can at 24.
Well, the surface area is much larger, but that doesn't necessarily help you.
But then I think, as we've seen with like Saruman, for instance, the difference between a 12-inch command and an 18-inch command is huge. Like that extra few inches makes a big difference. But that's
when moving a model can change the game, as opposed to firing like an extra round of arrows.
But then being able to shoot somebody without them being able to shoot back, I think, is quite powerful, because then even
against crossbows, that's so good.
Yeah, because like that means you basically get 2 turns of shooting at crossbows before they can shoot at you, and like
even then you can move back an inch. If they have to move first, you can just move to a position where you can shoot them and they can't shoot you.
Well, they have to stay still to get their bonus.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Oh, right, the extra range. Yeah,
they can ensure that the crossbows can't shoot them. Yeah, they would go there.
Yeah, as long as they lose priority. Yeah. But I think the extra range is a little bit situational. It's not always going to come to fruition. The spears as throwing spears is really good. That's really nice. The extra courage while you're broken is pretty good. And warrior models, which is pretty much everyone, re-rolling courage test while within 6 of Theoden is also really good. But the question is, is it better than having +1 strength with cav when you charge? And also, could you take this army without taking the Legion? I.e., can the elves ally with Rohan?
Yes, they're green. They're green.
They are green.
And the one thing is, Lothlorien lose resistant to magic, and that's quite a big deal.
I don't know if it is a big deal.
Well, I feel like I don't know. It depends, obviously, which armies you're coming up against. But like, I think.
Well, at Ardacon, I came up against one army with magic users. That might just have been my experience. But even then, being able to roll 1 dice and still, needing potentially a relatively high roll against your opponent's caster isn't a big deal.
But then it's kind of like giving your warriors a free resist roll, isn't it? I'm just thinking about our recent games where, like, for instance, when Onod compelled my Morgul Knight bomb, like I would have killed
my warrior into a bomb as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like resistance to magic there would be huge, but obviously it's situational. I think a lot about this Legion is quite situational, like the bow thing, and it's
what you do get elves. Is you get access to the Fellowship, which you wouldn't get with a normal alliance. And I think that, especially when we're talking about Legolas, he's an auto take. Yeah. And Aragorn is probably going to be up there, especially in larger points. And I think whilst obviously you lose the +1 to charge with Cav, I think giving Rohan access to 3-up shooting with an elf bow and access to spears does completely change their playstyle.
Yeah.
So I think there is a good reason to take this over just the regular alliance, actually.
Yeah. And I think it's not like an auto take competitively, but like I think if you were building this for the scene, I think you would definitely take this Legion, which is a good sign.
I don't think this list is like anything special competitively, but I don't think it does awfully, does it? It holds its own.
And I think it has a nice little niche, which is pretty good as well. Like, I think it's actually, is it the only Legion that buffs ranged like Ray? Like, is there anything else? Is there anything else?
Do you mean like the?
Yeah, I don't. Is there anything else in the game that gives you 30-inch bow?
Well, no, but you do get the new assault on Lothlorien. Is it the one where it
becomes
fight at night? Don't you?
Mess around with bow limit because of that, so that's kind of in the same.
Yeah, it does change the range a bit. Everything's 12 inches, apart from if you have Cave Dweller, which obviously all the goblins do. But I think their bows are only 6-inch range anyway. So essentially, they're gaining 6-inch range on their opponent, which is the equivalent of this, I would say. Except obviously,
it would be an interesting matchup pitting them against each other, actually, because that one basically nerfs this one.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I played against the Goblin one, and I think he killed maybe 2 models from shooting. It was with my assault on Helm.
Their shooting is not good.
No, I was really scared of it. I was terrified. I was camping, and I was just you can still shoot siege weapons more than 12 inches, but they need a 6 to hit. And I was just doing that, making sure he had to come to me, and just positioning myself in such a way that he had to come within 12 inches so I could shoot at him. And they really, they suck at shooting because he wanted to get to me so bad. He moved everything every turn, needed 6s, and obviously not going to hit very much. He's not going to wound very much.
Yeah. But then, like the flip side, the Galadrin warriors, if you give them a bow, are 3+, 30 inches, strength 3, and that's pretty. I mean, they're expensive,
and then they give you a really solid high fight value with your right hand behind with the spear. So
but this is something I'm going to come on to later. I don't know how you build this list in terms of a shield wall, because if you put the warriors at the front, you probably want to put bows on them, but then you can't put shields on them because then you don't get the advantage of the shields with the bows.
Wouldn't you put the elf warrior with bow and spear as a second rank?
But then what's the point of
Rohan at the front?
What's the point of having the throwing spears as supporting spears?
Because you can only take a third of the elf bows. You can only take a third warriors. Elf warriors. So,
but then you're losing one of the advantages of the Legion, which is you can support with Rohan spears.
But you're going to have some portion of your wall. If you've got one front line and one second line, some proportion of your wall is going to be the rear of the wall is going to be Rohan. So they'll come and use that. And you might decide just to take some elf warriors with elven blades, because that's obviously quite useful against a lot of things, having the elven blade special rule.
Just to check, the way the rule works is you can't throw a spear and then support in the same turn, can you?
No.
That's how it works? Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah.
But if you've lost priority, you could move into a position where you can throw a spear and in theory not be in combat, or not be at risk of being in combat, because the throwing spear range is 8 inches, isn't it? So even if you won priority, you could move with an 8 and force them to come within 2, or move back, in which case you're fine. So throwing spears with spears. I faced Helm Hammerhand's Legion, and they have the same rule, and it was quite useful for my opponent. It is a very nice rule, because you can also just double stack throwing spears.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if they're in a tight unit,
because they're strength 3, aren't they? Strength 3, range 8.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah. That's firstly, that's the same strength as a normal Rohan warrior anyway. It's like an extra attack you're getting for free, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a cool.
Riders of Eomer then?
Yeah. Am I going to read this as well? Am I?
Yes.
Good. This does good things to my ego. Right. Okay. So I've not read this Legion before, actually, because I think maybe I read it once, decided it wasn't as good as Theoden's Riders, or whatever it's called,
and then forgot about it.
And then I just decided I'm just going to ignore this now.
Probably forgot.
The additional rules. So it must include Eomer, obviously, and he's always the army's leader. Everyone must have the cavalry keyword, which, I mean,
redundant.
Yeah. And Riders of Rohan don't count towards the force's bow limit, which I think is standard. Is that
it's not standard in all legions. But it's standard
for
Rohan. It's standard Rohan. It's not standard for all legions.
It's in there, Rohan. Yeah.
Okay, so you have to take Eomer, so you can take him on horse with shield and or throwing spears. Erkenbrand, which I've always thought Erkenbrand is like a pretty solid model. You can take Gandalf on Shadowfax for 240 points. Wow.
Bargain.
Captain of Rohan and Riders of Rohan. So very streamlined army list. Special rule wise, they get +1 strength on the charge, but only if they're within 12 of Eomer, which is fine. I feel like for the most part, they're probably going to be within 12 inches of Eomer when they charge.
12 inches is a big bubble. Like it's 2 footy. Well, they're 2 foot.
It does rely on Eomer being alive though, and probably on a horse if he's keeping up with the army. So if your opponent snipes him,
the same rule as what Theoden gets in his own.
No.
Legion.
No. The Rohan army bonus is just a flat +1 strength when you charge. It's just so it doesn't require the leader being alive. So in this case, it's a very slightly worse version of the normal special rule. They also have Look to the Sun. So in the same vein as Theoden thinks, once per battle, and so long as Gandalf is alive, so straight away to use this rule, you have to have Gandalf. You can declare that you're using this ability at the start of any friendly move phase. Until the end of the turn, enemy models that are engaged with or supporting a model engaged with any friendly cavalry model. So basically, anything that's supporting or in combat with one of your cav models that made a charge this turn. And bear in mind, this is at the start of a friendly move phase. So this isn't a heroic move, which is a bit weird. They suffer a -1 penalty to their duel rolls. That's quite nice. It's quite nice.
I think that's really good.
But you have to declare it at the start of the friendly move phase.
Presumably, you are declaring it at the same time that heroics go on, so your opponent could then attempt to counter with a heroic move.
But it says at the start of a friendly move phase. So if you lost priority and heroic moved, like, is that the beginning of your move phase? Or is the beginning of your move phase not including heroics? I.e., if you in priority, I heroic move, I move Gandalf, do I have to declare it then? Or is it at the start of my actual move phase, not heroic actions?
They've been FAQ'd. I'll have a look at the FAQ whilst you're reading.
It's a good question. I don't know. So those are the two rules essentially. So you're swapping out the Rohan special rule for a slightly worse version where you have to have your hero within your leader Eomer within 12 inches of the model that's charged. But you do get this extra rule, which is pretty cool. So I feel like if you want to take the thematic scene, it's like a fair trade-off, and it's quite themey, and it's fairly good. Like having -1 to your duel rolls is a lot better than like the Shade, which is the only thing that I can think of that's a direct comparison. Is the Shade reroll 6s? I can't remember. You have to.
I think again, I will check because I've got the book here, but I think it's -1 to all.
The Shade.
I mean, Onod can. Sorry, Matt. No, Onod can just change these if I've got it wrong, and I'm sure he'll skillfully edit
in the correct.
Will make me look very smart as he always does.
Or I'll leave it in.
Yeah.
I'll leave in this long, awkward silence.
I mean, you're essentially just a humble editor at this point. At the start of the phase, this is for the Shade. Declared they can expend a will point. Everyone gets -1, so it's the same ability. They don't reroll 6s; they just get -1 to their dual rolls.
Nice.
Which I feel like is really good if you're charging in on that turn and you want to win some combats.
Yeah, for sure. Very useful rule. Right, let's try and answer this whole movement phase thing because there is no FAQ, so presumably they think it is obvious. If we go to page 22 in the main rulebook.
My assumption would be you declare it before heroics.
I mean, it makes sense to declare it before or at the same time as, but then equally it's more powerful if you don't have to.
Yeah,
because arguably, if you have to do the heroics and then it's like, now it's your move phase.
Yeah.
In the move phase, the player with priority moves first. They may move all, some, or none of the models in the control. Once the player with priority is complete, finished, the opposing player then gets to likewise. Blah 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 blah. Blah, blah. Doesn't say, so I guess it's the wording of heroics then that will matter.
And how does this interact with the patience phase?
Wow, the patience phase would fuck this rule. So yeah, good job it doesn't exist.
Yeah. What kind of fucking numbskull would suggest that?
Just a fucking idiot. But,
yeah, well, yeah. Kind of man who calls Men of the West solid.
What do we think about Erkenbrand?
I think
is cool. He's better than a captain.
I think
he's more expensive than a captain, so I'd hope so.
But I think
better value.
High points you take him because of his rule to make them red shields. But I think at low points you skip over.
The Horn's cool because
Horn's cool, but I don't think it.
+2 courage for all friendly models. Like if you're boosting a normal warrior from courage 3 to courage 5, that's actually quite a big deal. And like I think like horns and battlefield wide effects obviously scale better at higher points. But yeah, the problem is at lower points you have to take Eomer and Gandalf, which is like 350
points.
You
don't have to take Gandalf, but if you don't, you might as well take
the
Legion.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
The normal list, because otherwise your only special rule is the worst version of the Rohan special rule.
Yes,
so
that's kind of my point.
What I wanted to ask is, it's a bit weird that one of the special rules involves a character that's optional to take. I'm not sure I like that.
Not unprecedented though.
No, it's true.
Is there anything like that in
Maher? I knew you were going to ask this. Maher alerts his scouts because you don't have to take him, but if you don't take him, you don't get the +2 inch move. So you have to put Maher in.
Right. I mean, I feel like Maher is
breaking of the fellowship.
The problem is Maher isn't auto included in that list because he's one of the only named captains that's like any good, and so you're going to take him anyway. So you're going to get that rule 100% every time. Whereas this one, it's like, well, you could just take Eomer and Erkenbrand and a load of dudes anywhere up to like maybe even 700 points if you want to take a captain to get March as well. But you don't, like, Gandalf is so expensive that, like, at low points, I really just can't see this working.
Yeah, I have to say, I wasn't going to go through the lists that I built at this point. Now, I can do if you want to, but, like, building the list, especially for riders of Eomer at 400 points, if you want to put Gandalf in, is a non-starter. Like, it only starts to make sense when you get to like 600 and above, and even then, like Gandalf is nearly half of your army. Like he's over a third of your army at 600 before you even started.
Well, at 400 points, you get 5 models, right? So
yes,
really
yeah.
And
like,
I think 400 points. Could you not just play it as a 3 hero list?
What, Eomer, Erkenbrand, and Gandalf?
Does that fit points wise, or is that too?
No, it doesn't fit.
It's too expensive. So you'd have to do Eomer.
This is if you
Eomer with no kit, Gandalf and a captain.
Yeah, This is if you're insisting on using the look to the sun special rule. If you're insisting on taking Gandalf, but again, I mean, Gandalf the White, is he in the Minas Tirith?
He is.
Minas Tirith. And Minas Tirith Rohan is green. So, but
you get to lead the Riders of Rohan in Gandalf's warband.
Yes, but so at low points it still doesn't make sense. But you're right. At high points,
I think you probably don't take this until 600 points. But when you hit 600 points, I then think there are good reasons to take this.
Yeah, because Riders of Theoden as well. Like you can really make that list work with a low model count. You don't need lots of Riders of Rohan or Rohan Royal Guard. You can make it work with a low hero count. Admittedly, on that list, you've got lots of melee heroes, whereas on this one, you've got melee hero, a couple of melee heroes, and Gandalf. So you have potentially more versatility, but less killing power. 240 points is a lot.
I think you play. I think it's going to sound stupid, but I think comparing Riders of Theoden to this list is not that valid because I think you play the lists in a very different way.
I agree.
I think Theoden is all about Royal Guard, chucking your heroes in and maximising the death and gambling. Whereas I think Riders of Eomer, because you can only take Riders of Rohan and Gandalf, if you want to build it themey, I think you play it very skirmishy.
This is a skirmish list, which has the ability to unleash a really good
turn. On one turn.
You have to be very careful about the turn you do it in. But I think that if you play it right, you can achieve a snowball effect where you can basically you're attempting to try and break your opponent in one turn. And if you get it right, you could do it.
I think it's weirdly similar to like how a Riv Knights list might play because a lot of what Riv Knights is about is taking advantage of like your bowfire, your range stuff to whittle them down and then picking like a couple of key turns with Elrond to charge in and take advantage of that big charge turn. And like, I think that's how you'd have to play this because you can't just charge in the first turn because you don't have the firepower, you don't have the Royal Guard to take them down.
You don't have the heroes either. You've got exactly. I mean, it's interesting because in the Riders of Theoden, Eomer is like the fifth hero that you take. It's like, but in this one, obviously, you're having to take him and Erkenbrand. They're just not as good melee wise.
Yeah, in Riders of Theoden, you have to take Theoden. You're definitely taking Helm. I feel like you'd probably take Deowine over
Elfhelm.
Eomer for sure, and then Elfhelm in there is and then like Eomer would end up being, as you're saying, like fourth or fifth, and that's before like putting in gambling at higher points levels. So like it's because like I think Eomer's got a really good profile, but like just for what that Riders of Theoden list has to do, he gets dropped down to like as you're saying, fourth or fifth hero.
I feel like all the Lord of the Rings characters need like an update where they get an extra special rule to keep up with the Hobbit because Eomer, I feel like if they made Eomer now, he'd be a lot cooler than he is in the Lord of the Rings profile.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Eomer's got quite a cool profile. It's just Rohan have too many heroes is the issue.
Yeah.
But because I feel like Eomer is your like bog standard 100-point hero. Like if you look at that profile, like that's what you'd probably expect for about 100. Same as like Shagrat without the shield. They're both like around that 100 points, what you expect to get. Like 3s everywhere you want them, a reasonable fight level, a reasonable defense. But like you need those special rules like Helm has or like Deowine has with the free heroic combat to like push them up to the next tier.
So is there anything, do we want to like finish up on Riders of Eomer or go back to Defenders to discuss what we would change?
I think I'm just going to say for Riders of Eomer, just to kind of put my I don't know what the phrase I'm looking for here is.
Are you about to give us your opinion?
Yeah.
To put your stamp on it?
Sure. I'm not sure that's the phrase I was looking for.
I don't know.
Give your 10 cents.
Comment below on what you think.
I was going to say,
like and subscribe.
I was going to
hit that bell.
I was going to say that I was going to put my stick in the sand, but I'm not sure that's a real style.
Just tell us
Plant
what you
your
think.
flag in the sand.
Tell us what you think.
This is my favourite Rohan Legendary Legion.
Oh, what the fuck? Are you fucking serious?
OT, we have to conspire to make sure this doesn't get in fantastic.
I'm not going to argue it's fantastic because I think it's fantastic.
Fuck me. Are you
I really like it.
Why?
Because I think that it ticks all the boxes in terms of, and when we get to review, we can go into more detail. But I think it changes the play style in a way that doesn't make it worse, but it isn't like an auto win. I think having Gandalf in the list makes it really interesting, and I think that it turns what is otherwise a bit of a boring. You just throw in a load of powerful heroes and you just chug through your opponent turn after turn into I actually have to think a bit more carefully about when I'm going to charge and when I'm going to use what resources I have. And I think that Gandalf actually is really good. And I think this is one of the only... No, he is. He's maybe a little bit overcosted. But I think that this is one of the only lists that you can actually justify bringing Gandalf the White in and him earning his points.
I have to say, I sound really triggered. I do agree with you on a lot of those levels. I don't agree with you for the same reasons, but I think you have a point. This isn't my favorite Legion. My favorite Legion is even worse than this one.
Favorite Rohan
Grey
Legion.
Company.
No, my favorite Rohan Legion. I should have specified. But yeah, like the other Legion from Rohan, I really like is for the same reasons as what you've just illustrated. So I do get where you're coming from, but I don't agree with you.
But let's I just want to run through why I like this Legion, because I just kind of sat there allowing you guys to kind of, I think, go through the reasons why, what most people think about this and why this gets ignored a lot. Mm-hmm. But if you think of this not as trying to compare it with the other Rohan, and I also like this for the reason of you don't have to directly compare it with them because it does a different thing. Whilst I think a lot of them are like the one we discussed with the Wild Men of Druiden. That's just Theoden's Legion, but you've got a load of shit guys running around on foot and some like weird special rule. And
that's
it's just
my favorite. That's my favorite.
There you go. But for that one, I'm like, but that one, OT can disagree with you. But for that one, I'm like, why the fuck would you take that? Because it's just Theoden.
I think it's okay as well.
I mean, it has some fun special rules, but to me, that one feels more gimmicky, whilst this one feels more like it's building around something different.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying. Like any Legion, and whatever reason you're about to say, any Legion that makes you do something different to the normal list, I think is a really good idea. So like, I agree with what you're saying.
The thing for me that I like about this is because it's going to be relatively small model counts with cavalry models, you're going to get a lot more out of Gandalf's magic. His blinding light is going to be really, really useful. He can fortify spirit, strength, and will on himself and Eomer, which is going to make Eomer a lot more effective in certain games. His Sorcerer's Blast on a 4-up is going to come in use. And obviously, because Gandalf also has Immobilize and Command, Immobilize on a 2-up, I think, really helps this Legion deal with what Rohan struggle with, which is Rohan are low fights on their heroes. Gandalf gives Eomer the ability that Eomer potentially doesn't now have to always spend a might point on striking, because you can immobilize something. And I actually think in this Legion, you can use Gandalf as a pretty good combat hero, because Gandalf the White is 2 attacks. So on the charge, he will get 3. I would be throwing Gandalf in there. Not against like big heroes.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting with Gandalf because like he kind of does 2 things. Like he does magic and he does combat, but I think that 2 attacks, and maybe this is a controversial opinion, is a little bit bait, because I think it's too often going to lead you to charge in. But
then he gets 3 attacks.
Yeah, but like I think the problem I found with the Witch King is that if you are looking to charge in and get him involved in combat, you lose access to that magic too often, because then you're getting countercharged. Whereas if you hold him back,
you can magic before charging.
No, but as in I'm saying, like in the subsequent phases, if you lose priority, you get charged. You don't got opportunity to lose that magic, and he doesn't.
Terrifying more on Gandalf, right?
Okay, but and if you want to use that, that's fine. But like, if he gets tied up by like even one orc who gets in,
that's fine.
you lose.
Yeah.
And
but I think the whole point in this list is you aren't committing until you feel confident that you've picked off a few warriors with your bows. You've got a devastating charge in. So in theory, at that stage, I don't think I'm going to be massively disappointed if I lose a priority roll and either have to heroic move or Gandalf gets charged. I don't think I'm going to be in a situation in that game where I'm going like, oh no, Gandalf now can't do something.
Yeah,
Mary, I can see that you're looking frustrated and that you want to
this. I'll let Mare go. I'll let Mare go first.
I was just trying to think of how I could make the Legion better. I just feel like the Legion lacks a little bit of hitting power. It's way too restrictive, in my opinion. Like it it can't be any less restrictive though. Like it just is what it is. Like the people who are there are in this Legion, and the rules make sense in terms of you need, look to the sun. You need Gandalf to blind all the Uruk-hai, whatever as it comes downhill, and you need Eomer to give the bonus strength to charging. And I was just trying to think of something else.
I have some ideas.
Go on. You do yours first.
Woo! Okay. I would give Gandalf Shadowfax for free.
Yeah, you could do that.
It's just a points decrease, though. I was trying to think of something more interesting.
I think that helps. Because the problem is, if you're putting in Gandalf, you're sacrificing, and that gets you an entire Rider of Rohan with throwing spears and some points left over. So I think that's good. I would also give them all Swarm Protector Eomer, because they're all the dudes that show up are loyal to him, and I think that would be nice. I think that would be cool. I would also give the warriors in Erkenbrand's warband the red shields upgrade for free.
Yeah, brilliant.
And those would be my 3. And I think actually, if you put those in, because this Legion is already light on rules, I think it actually makes it really interesting and really competitive. Those would be my 3.
I think they're really good suggestions. The only thing I would add to that is maybe instead of one of them making Eomer or Erkenbrand a banner, but I don't think it's necessary. I think what you suggest is really good, actually.
But then, so the Erkenbrand thing, the red shields is effectively they get Erkenbrand as a banner. So, like, I think that actually, and the problem is, I think in this Legion, you're actually going to really struggle to put Erkenbrand in a lot of the time.
Sorry, because for listeners and maybe myself, what is the red shield upgrade again?
So the
red counts as being a banner for them.
Being a banner for them. So so literally the warriors in his warband, which I think is actually relatively themey, treat him as a banner, and I think that would be quite good.
I think I should just treat him as a banner. Yeah, just make him a banner.
Personally, I wouldn't make red shields free, because I think that just then increases a rule where you then feel like you have to take two characters.
Sure, yeah.
But for a list building thing, you're then going, right, you only have to take Eomer, but then all of the rules involve the other 2 characters.
Well, no, because if you've essentially got 3 rules there. Erkenbrand is a banner, Eomer gives +1 strength on the charge to within 12, and Gandalf has his look to the sun rule. So you can customize your Legion a little bit to be like, well, I'm going to take Eomer and Erkenbrand to get all the melee stuff, or Eomer.
You're just saying at low points cost, you're never going to see this Legion ever, because there's no reason playing it unless you take all the heroes. Personally, what I do is I think I like OT Swarm Protect rule. I keep that.
Yeah.
I just change the rule that says you have to be within 12 inches of Eomer to just if Eomer is on the battlefield, they get +1 strength, because I feel like it's a really pedantic rule to go.
Yeah,
we've gone from every Rohan gets +1 strength in a normal list to you suddenly need to be within 12 inches of Eomer. The point of the rule is that they want Eomer to be connected with the army bonus. So just make it so it's whilst he's alive, and I think that makes it a lot better. And that's the only changes that I'd make to it. Should we talk about defenders then? What changes would we make this one? This one's probably going to be more complicated because there's already so much going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. Like, I tried to build this list, and I genuinely have. I think I've built 4 lists in total for this, and I don't know which one's best.
Hero list is the best one.
It is indeed. Those King's Huntsmen, they'll get you.
I
think
they'll definitely kill heroes.
I think at low points, you want to take a combination of Theoden and Haldir, because Haldir gets some nice buffs for being near Theoden, and you want to run some Galadrim, so that's probably what you'd do. And then at higher points, I don't know. Like it
becomes a case of you want lots of models, but you also want the big heroes, so it's finding the right balance of which heroes and then the models. So
I will say, like, there's so much skill in building this list. Like, I could not find a way to build a list I liked, and like, I'm sure in this Legion somewhere there is a really good list, but I just could not think of a way to like make it all go together.
I think if I was building this seriously for big points, I'd be taking Theoden, Gamling, Legolas as the kind of auto takes. I think I'd then take Haleth and Aragorn.
Mm-hmm.
I'd chuck in the cheap Rohan Archer hero because I think there's not really any reason not to.
So every hero is what you've just said?
No, because I don't think I'd bother taking Haldir. I wouldn't bother taking Gimli.
Wow.
Interesting.
I think you cut them out because I think Haldir's good, but I think that really in this army, I don't think that he's worth it over the other heroes I've named, and I think that I'd rather cut him out and take in more warriors.
Yeah, I think
I'd take as many warriors and elves as possible.
Yeah, the elves, I think you give the bows and a spear because 11 points. No, is that right? No,
yeah.
12 points. 12 points, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, with a spear.
2 points.
With a bow and spear, it'd be 12 points, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have a second line, like Honor was saying. Second line with bows, and obviously the spears help out, so you've got 5-5. I think the one thing potentially I'd change is I'm not a fan of increasing the range from 24 to 30 and the fact that you have to stay still. I'd rather it either be just a flat 6-inch bonus or you make it +1 strength or +1 strength within 12 inches.
I think the reason they did that is so that you play this army as a shield wall rather than as a kiting force.
Yeah.
Because I think if it was like you could move, then you would just keep edging around 3 inches each turn and staying just out of range of your opponent for a bit longer. Whilst I think the intention is that they want you to have to play this as you're stood in one place because then that's themey. But
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from. Maybe if you didn't move, you get +1 strength. But then strength 4 elf bows might be a bit too good.
Yeah.
Well, you can only take a third of them. So I guess at
But
that point,
if
maybe you're trying to max out. You take
if
third
the
and then just
third
as
of
many
your-
dudes as you can.
If a third of your army can be equipped with bows, then why would you not just take the third of your army that can be elves with bows?
You would, yeah.
So you're not actually losing out on anything because the third that you take are the third with bows.
No, but my point is, like, although it's a bonus, it's still only a bonus to a third of your army.
Oh, right, sure, yeah, I get you. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know.
I have a slightly controversial buff, which I think is OP. I would make throwing spears. I would make throwing spears cost 1 point.
Do they not already? Oh, instead of 2 points.
They're 2 points, and I think that's too
So
much.
you'd make them 1 point and have a bonus where they become spears.
Because I think the way you build this list and what you both just said was you'd put Galadrim on the back line with a spear and a bow, and actually then on your front line you've got either Royal Guard or normal Rohan who are just using their throwing spears in the normal way. So I don't think actually the way you end up building this list uses the rule at all. Whereas I think if you make it 1 point cheaper, you would actually end up using it in a way that was intended. So that would be my change to the list.
Yeah, I think that would help.
Or some kind of shield wall. The other option was like you give a specific type, either the Warriors of Rohan, the Royal Guard, or the Galadrim Warriors, a shield wall rule.
Is that themey though? They
well,
don't really
because
do that.
Well, they are still on top of the walls defending, and
They don't. You never see them, create a shield wall together or really help each other at all.
Yeah,
no, true.
It's true. But then, like, I feel like then is the supporting with throwing spears thing themey.
Fair point.
Like, I feel like they go hand in hand. So I feel like either I would do the throwing spears cost 1 or the shield wall thing. And I feel like
radical idea. Remove the throwing spear rule. Introduce throw stones, strength 3. Every Rohan model gets it, but they can't move to use it.
Literally tearing my hair out.
They're just big hobbits.
You see them throw stones off the walls.
They do.
We do see them do that.
It's balanced because they can't move and do it. And you get the bonus for free, and then you just say that they have spears rather than throwing spears.
I feel like maybe they could have a courage buff because
but they do die.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like they don't turn away. They don't really flee. They fall back. They do a tactical retreat to the keep. but pretty much everyone is like, this is the last stand. We've got to protect our families who are in the cave. At Theoden's speech as well, like, I feel like maybe either have a one-turn thing would be nice, or some kind of courage buff. So if Theoden's alive, everyone's +1 courage or something.
Or you put in an Aragorn charge rule, because like he leads that big charge down when the wall gets blown up. If he charges in, he's a banner for a turn.
I just don't know.
For elves.
I just don't know, to be honest, if this legion needs more rules. It's already like rule heavy and
That's true.
Arduous.
It's rule heavy, but it doesn't seem that good.
I'd rather it just got simplified rather than overcomplicated, or just split it into like, just have it so it's like all of the other legions that combine armies, where the elves and the Rohan get a bonus if they're in combat together, so that there's an actual reason to
that'd be nice.
Use them, and then just get rid of all of the guff.
What's the situation on the cost of building these armies? OT rubs his hands together.
Yes, right.
Okay, can we quickly just before we do this, can we quickly just talk about me and OT all hero?
List. Well, it's what the meta's been crying out for, I think.
It really is.
More King's Huntsman.
800 points meta breaking lists.
Yeah.
Which we came up with whilst drinking and playing Rocket League.
It was, and that's when the best ideas are formed.
That is when the best ideas are formed. So it's all hero. It was Theoden.
It was
Aragorn.
It was
gambling with Banner.
It was. Yep.
Haldir, Legolas,
and the rest.
And 5 King's
Huntsmen.
And the idea is that you're basically, the point of the list is you are trying to kill or take as many fate off the enemy's hero models before they make it to you in combat.
Yep.
So the intention being that you can therefore basically deal with anything that reaches you in close combat with your big heroes. And the King's Huntsmen would just pile their might into killing these guys. In the ways, no problem, because it's a 2-up.
Yeah.
You've got Legolas and Haldir just multi-shotting in.
Yeah.
And it's really bad.
Yeah. But
we like, it could actually potentially maybe kill an enemy hero before you reach them.
I unironically think it's actually scarily close to being competitively viable.
Better than you think, maybe.
Because
not good.
I think the one thing we didn't consider is how ridiculous 30-inch range is on a lot of the boards that people play. Because 30-inch range means that even against Cav, you're getting at least 2 shots, probably 3, at them before they hit you.
The only issue is scenarios. Most scenarios, just
I mean, we wouldn't have won a lot, but also, how many might was it? Wasn't it like 26 might at 800?
It was a lot. It was a lot of might, and you can regen it because of gambling, and if the King's Huntsman kills something, they regen. But
Legolas and Haldir were getting 5 strength 3 shots per turn between them at 30 inches. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been really fun. I think we would have lost a lot, but like there would have been turns where we just like insta killed somebody. And, I think
if you get the perfect storm, it would just like if you came up against like a low defense army where you just pick off their heroes and they can't really stop
about it. Yeah, I agree.
But I think when we tested it against the Dragon Emperor, we basically, in a single turn, if the Dragon Emperor was out in the open in a single turn with this list, you could get him to 2 wounds and no fate reasonably consistently. And obviously, you'd have in the way
in one turn. But the inner ways don't matter.
The inner ways don't matter for the majority of the shots because Legolas and then the 5 King's Huntsman.
Yeah,
and so specifically,
what happens with the in the ways for the Dragon Emperor? Because isn't it on a hit him on a 5 or 6?
We account
re-roll with the Huntsman.
you just reroll the Huntsman.
Got you.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
it just
And
that's why
also-
the Huntsmen are weirdly good because they're strength 3 and they reroll in the waves. So
Yeah.
like
we also reasons that you just use Aragorn's 3 might points called heroic accuracy.
Yeah. Why not?
So yeah, why not?
Anyway, we opted against that.
we aren't actually building that because we thought it sounded terrible, but we had fun building the list. Anyway, right? How much does it cost to build these armies?
Okay. Now for Rohan, they're not too bad. Defenders of Helm's Deep is £4 under average at 400 points.
Wow,
and it's £15 under average at 136.
Does that include some elves and?
Yes, it does. The slight sticking point is that if you're buying direct from GW, you can only get Theoden as a mounted model, so he costs about 25 quid, I think, maybe a little bit cheaper. So that's a little bit fiddly. But apart from that, it's absolutely fine because both the Warriors of Rohan and Galadrim Warriors are a plastic kit. Even the Royal Guard on foot are not that bad, so that's absolutely fine. And how?
By the way, OT, are you now accounting for the new Battle Host boxes when you go through prices?
They will be added. They have not currently been added, but they will be added.
I think that'll make a difference for the Eomer's Riders ones.
Yeah, I actually put the Battle Host into Eomer's.
Okay.
I do have a social life, I promise. Eomer's Riders is the cheapest Rohan Legion by a fucking mile. Main reason for that is how good value for points Gandalf is, because he is however many fucking points, 220 points. 240, and like he's really good value. He's a bit like the Mummock in terms of like he's quite expensive, but he gives you good value. And then the rest of it's just plastic, and even Eomer is a standalone model, which is really nice. It gets a little bit fiddly if you're buying like Erkenbrand stuff, but it's not too bad. So they come in £20 under average at 400 points, and then £15 again under average at 650. So they're both actually for the Rohan really cheap, which is pretty good.
And the great thing about Eomer is now the Battle Host is out. You buy the Battle Host, you get all of the dismounts you could ever need because it comes with a box of Warriors of Rohan, which is basically free in the Battle Host. And then all you're buying is Gandalf, and then as many boxes of Riders of Rohan as you need to fill it up.
And the other thing is, these legions work really well together with the Battle Host because you want dismounts, i.e. foot Warriors of Rohan for Helm's Deep. So, like, weirdly, even though when we talked about the Battle Host box, when we said the Rohan wasn't really that good, for the majority of the legions, it actually works fairly well because, like with Theodred's Guard, for instance, you're probably going to want a few dismounts. So yeah,
you could even go the route of converting the Eomer model into a Theodred, and then that would be like the perfect start to Theodred's Guard. But we'll talk about that when we get on to Theodreds.
Yeah, I will say for Rohan, they're both really good. Like Rohan on the whole, really expensive. These two, pretty good. So yeah, it's definitely something that doesn't stand against either of them in terms of their ranking at the end, which is actually really good for Rohan.
Cool.
Weirdly for Rohan, they're pretty good value. Like it's fucking bizarre. I've actually called it Rohanitis in my tier list.
It's because it's all plastic and unlike.
I know exactly. And it doesn't involve the fucking Royal Guard, which are a fucking abomination to capture.
But it's also that you don't need 2 million heroes.
Exactly. Who are all in Forge World for no reason.
You can just get 2 heroes and ignore what. But anyway, shall we rank them? So very quickly, let's just run through our ranking system for people who are listening for the first time. I apologise. You are
that they're listening in the first place, and they're listening for the first time.
No, I'm apologising
if they've got this far.
Anyway, we have 4 ranks. So our top rank is fantastic. Those are Legendary Legions that we think. I assume that I'll have edited it so that this has appeared.
I like how you're not really sure if your future self is going to be bothered.
Well, my future self might be busy painting
Future
a wall.
Onon is very untrustworthy. He's a shifty character.
Yeah, he's shifty now and in the past. Fantastic legendary legions that we think are well priced, good for people to collect, good on the table, offer something unique. Not necessarily like auto win because it's not just about competitive, but all round very good legendary legions that we think are kind of the top tier. We then have underneath that solid, which are basically ticking all the boxes, but there might be a couple of issues behind them. In one of those factors, average are where we are starting to say that we question whether it's worth taking it over the regular list. There might be something that if you're doing a very specific theme that makes it worth it, but otherwise probably not. And then width, which is basically just take the normal army. Or in the case of the ruffians, just don't take them. So there we go. Shall we start off with Defenders of Helm's Deep? I think this might be really difficult to place because I don't think anyone has any idea what the fuck this Legendary Legion really could be, is meant to be, is. It's an enigma.
Do you want me to read out what I wrote in the line?
Go on,
in my Google Doc. I said, I don't know. I've got no fucking idea.
I don't think it's fantastic.
No, it's not.
No.
I think that it's just too weird to be fantastic. And I'm also not really sure, like, does anyone actually, like, really... Like, I guess there are people who thematically want to run it, but I kind of also feel like if you're really keen on running this, you probably weren't, like, crying out for a Legendary Legion. You'd probably just do the allies and be like, fuck it, we'll do allies to convenience because I didn't need my cavalry bonus anyway. But I guess for those people, it's nice having the little bonuses that you get for this Legendary Legion and the slightly funky building and dilemma of too much choice. It's not a bad thing. So I'm going to go in and say that I think it's a discussion between solid and average. Yeah, and I think that we've got to lean into solid because it is offering you something completely different to what all of the lists it combines would do normally. And it's not astronomically badly priced. And it is fluffy. And I guess it probably is fun to play if it isn't great. But I don't think that it excels in anything. I think it's just... like the definition of it is just kind of solid in those areas.
I think I fully agree with you. It's somewhere between solid and average. I actually don't know. I'm completely baffled. It does nothing that wrong, but it also doesn't anything that well. So I've literally said it's either right at the bottom of solid or right at the top of average, and I don't mind which because I think it fulfills both of those roles absolutely fine.
Do you want me to read out which ones we've got in which so that you can then...
Yeah, let's compare. Let's think where it goes.
So in solid, we've currently got, and Mary, I know Mary's very sorry about this, Riders of Theoden.
It's worse than that.
It can't go in the same category.
No, it's worse than Rise of Theoden.
Well, but remember, Rise of Theoden is at the very top of solid. We've got Rangers of Ithilien, which I feel like this list is kind of similar to Rangers of Ithilien, but not as good competitively.
It's worse than Rangers for me, just.
And we've got Blackgate.
Okay.
And then in average, we've got Damamux.
Yeah.
Army of Gothmog. Yeah. And Shire.
Okay.
Shire's in there.
We need another category. How the fuck did Shire make it to average?
Because we felt like it wasn't a whiff because it at least offered something. The thing is it's worse than all the ones in solid, but it's better than all the ones in
average.
Should we create a new character that's this Legion?
Just put it in its own tier. The Defenders of Helm's Deep tier.
I think by the finest margin, I think it's in solid. I think it just sneaks into solid because I think there's been a fair amount of effort put into this one, like in terms of the rules and stuff. And I think it's just themey enough that I think it deserves to sneak into solid.
Mayor, agree?
I totally agree. I think it's borderline solid. I feel like there's definitely something that could have been done to make it a little bit more fluffy or competitive. But because it's well priced in terms of collecting it, it does exactly what the Legion does in the films. It's fluffy. I think that's what ekes it into that for me, but I think it could have been a bit more competitive in it,
I
potentially.
think that's fair enough. So bottom was solid, and then Eomer's Riders. Okay, I think
this could get ugly.
This one might have more contention. I think we set out to say that this is not about competitiveness, and I think it ticks all the boxes except for the fact that it doesn't quite rules-wise have enough there, and that it just needs a little bit more. But I think it's fluffy. It's really well priced. It's really easy to collect. Like it's probably the best. If somebody was to go like, what's the best Legendary Legion for a new player to collect? I actually think this one.
But I think Magic makes it difficult to play well.
But I don't think. But we're not talking about like the easiest to play. I think to collect, this is one.
But if you collect it and you fucking lose every game because your opponent only wants to play 400-point games, then
true.
You know.
It is limited by that. But I also think it's fun to play. I think it offers you lots of different things to do. You're not just going to have the same game over and over. You're actually going to have to play it differently.
Yeah.
For me, it's a top of solid. Maybe bottom of fantastic, but I realise I'm not going to be able to convince you guys to put it there. So
I have a really interesting theory on the Rohan stuff, and that's like, I really dislike Riders of Theoden because I think it's too good. And I think I have an issue with it. I prefer Paths of Druiden over Riders of Theoden as a Legion. Because, and I think this is controversial, I like Legions that try to do something different. And that's why I have a soft spot for Paths of Druiden and for Riders of Eomer. I appreciate that is just me, but I'm kind of on the same line of Onod, as in, like, I prefer this to Riders of Theoden.
Yeah. The thing that makes Riders of Theoden naturally unlikable is, unlike most of the other Legendary Legions, Riders of Theoden is just the Rohan list but better.
Yeah.
That it's and not
with all the good heroes, it doesn't lose any of the really good heroes, except for maybe
like
Theodred.
It's not really like the only thing you lose is you can't take allies, whilst in all of the other Legendary Legions, there's a cost to taking them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but anyway, we just talked about Rise of Theoden, and controversially, we've already put it in solid rather than fantastic.
But then, I think what we're hinting at here is like, what should Legendary Legions do? And like that's going to be a different question for everybody, because some people, and I could fully see this, will put Rise of Theoden as like the best Legendary Legion, and I can fully see
those
that.
are very smart people, obviously.
Yeah, but that's just the competitive thing.
No, but also like it's themey. Like the only issue I think we have with it is it's like
your only reason was the costs.
Yeah,
from what I remember.
And like the way it plays is just a bit like is maybe not what we like. Whereas the reason it sounds like you like Riders of Eomer is because it has that skirmishy aspect and that big charge turn. I like Paths of Druiden because it's a bit fucking weird. And it does something that no other Rohan list does.
Mayor, what tier would you put Eomer's so that we can just
I think it's top of average for me. It's a little bit too restrictive for me. Like, half of literally, if you don't take Gandalf, there's 0 point in taking the Legion. So for me, you have to take Gandalf and you have to take Eomer, even though it doesn't say you have to take Gandalf. If you're only taking Eomer, you might as well take the normal
You objectively should, because the bonus
it's just
is better.
Yeah.
Can I just point out though that we currently have in our top tier as one of the best ones, Assault on Helm's Deep, an army that's so restrictive it cuts out every single named hero, and an army which, unless you take the siege blisters, doesn't make any use of its rules. How can you then turn around and say
the bomb?
That's not a requirement.
Okay, what I say is, when I say restrictive, I mean that it's restrictive in that you have to take Eomer. That's 100%. If you're taking this Legion over the normal army list, you also have to take Gandalf the White. Otherwise, there's no point.
But I don't see the issue with that, because thematically, who isn't taking those characters to?
I'm not saying it's a problem thematically. I think it makes sense thematically. If anything, if you're taking this Legion, obviously, regardless of the rules, if you're taking this as I want to recreate that moment, you are taking Eomer and Gandalf. So in that respect, it is fine. But I think because it forces you, in terms of rules, if you're looking at it from a pure rules perspective, there's no point taking it over a normal army unless you're taking Gandalf the White, in which case you're basically restricted to taking it at mid to higher points levels.
Okay, that's fine.
And at that point, I don't personally think it's that competitive, and I wouldn't take it. It is on that borderline between the two.
We're not creating a competitive tier list. That's not the point of the tier list, remember?
No, but it is an aspect of considerations.
Yeah,
but if that's the only aspect, how can you say it's an average when it excels in every other area?
Oh, I think excels is strong. I think excels is strong.
I think it excels.
I think personally, I think it bombs on competitive. I don't think it's very competitive. I'm sure in some situations it can be very good, and it will have that moment of that thematic moment where Gandalf casts blinding light essentially, and you fuck everything for a turn.
I think personally the reason that this is not as competitive as it could be is because people overlook it and never play it. And I think if somebody actually seriously took it and seriously put some work into thinking about how to play it, it would do better than people would think it would.
I
don't disagree.
I would kind of disagree with that, purely on the basis that I think Gandalf is too expensive, and like I think the model I can most easily compare him to is the Witch King, in my opinion, in terms of like good versus evil. And I think actually a lot of the time I would take a fully kitted Witch King who's cheaper than Gandalf. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think the problem is with Gandalf is he has a lot of mitigation, but nothing that like is overtly like offensive in terms of magic. So what I've actually written in my Google Doc is that he slows big heroes down, but he doesn't actually do anything to kill them, as it were. And I think the problem is you only have Riders of Rohan and you only have Eomer to actually go in there and do the killing. And I wonder if that's enough versus losing out on the Royal Guard, who, although I hate the fucking models, they're stupidly expensive, are really good in game. Really good in game.
I think Eomer with Gandalf should be considered a big hero, though. Because when he has the support and when he has the special rules, you are going to get a couple of turns where Eomer will be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
What even is Eomer's special rule? Does he even have one?
Prince of Grief. If Theoden or Eowyn are in the same force, and if they die, he gets +1 to wound.
So what you're saying is he doesn't have a special rule in this.
Well, he gets Expert Rider and Horse Lord.
Well,
not really anything.
He has the rule where everyone within 12 inches gets +1 strength.
But that's
I realise with the army rule, but that becomes his rule.
Yeah. Oh, Eomer's like a bulky captain.
Yeah,
I hate it.
I don't know. I would slightly disagree.
He's so much more than a bulky captain.
Yeah,
he's not though.
He's fight 5. He's got 3 attacks, 3 wounds, and 3 fate. And like, I think he's much more than a bulky captain.
Compared to a captain, he has 1 extra fight. He has, as a baseline, 1 extra defense. He has 1 extra attack. He has 1 extra wound. He has 1 extra courage. He has 1 extra might. He has 2 extra will. He has 2 extra fate. He's way beyond a bulky captain. Like Eowyn is a bulky captain when she's as the like buffed version.
But I think the point Mayor is making is that maybe he doesn't bring any cool shit beyond that. Like he is essentially like
he's just slightly better stats.
Yeah, he'll go in there. He'll go in there and he'll kill shit, and like then he'll die. Is my perception of this. Like I'm. And then the problem is, as soon as he dies, you lose your army bonus.
Yeah.
So, like, would J. Clare win a tournament with this Legendary Legion?
Of course he would, but he could turn up with like one wood elf with no bow.
So we have decided.
That's a stupid fucking comparison.
Eomer's riders are fantastic.
Shut the fuck up.
We're going to end the podcast there.
I think he'd somehow find a way to top tail with ruffians and like.
So it's average, is it? Oh, sorry. You've both gone solid, so it
I
goes
don't
in solid.
think I've gone solid. I think I'm open to persuasion.
Uh,
Oh, what is it? Is it solid?
If you're the deciding, then I think for me, I don't know. I'm even eking on solid. I don't think it's definitely not bad. It's just if you were taking this Legion, if you wanted to recreate the scene, you were going to take Gandalf. So I don't understand why they didn't just make you have to take Gandalf and give him the special rule. But it's not quite competitive enough for me.
Why does it matter that they haven't specified you must take Gandalf?
Because otherwise, it's not the scene from the movie, is it?
But you are going to take Gandalf. So what's the issue?
Well, the issue is why.
Is there justification that Eomer's riders encountered the 3 hunters earlier on and Gandalf wasn't with them?
Interesting.
But then they're shit.
I think
you're just really nerfing yourself there. Just take the rest of the army list. Even
I think OT's onto something here. I think they've actually done the let's just kill 2 birds with 1 stone thing, because you if you don't take Gandalf, then it becomes the killing Uglug scouts essentially. Yeah. And if you do take him, it becomes running down the hill, which is really interesting actually.
In which case, they need the fucking Swarm Protector for Eomer.
Yes. And I think that's a really serious myth, and I wonder if it's actually quite detrimental to its ranking, because
his men are they'll follow him regardless of whether.
And they risk being like fucking exiles from Rohan just following him. And the fact they don't get that is because also this fucking Legion is so light on rules. It's not like, Fellowship or, whatever the fucking Easterling one is, where they get the Dragon Emperor on crack for free. Like, like you should have Swarm Protector. I don't know. I think it's solid. I think it's slightly better than the Defenders of Helm's Deep one, but it creeps into solid.
Based on what you said about the fact that you could take it as the attacking Uglug scouts, I think actually based on that it would eke its way into solids for me as well.
Yeah.
So we're saying fantastic, good. Right.
Yeah. 1984 he missed shit.
Top of solid?
No.
Fuck off. It's marginally above Helm's Deep, but
I mean I'm not really putting them into an order. So I'm just going to shove it in solid. But yeah, solid.
I mean, Rides of Theden needs to be at the top of solid. Like, it needs to be right at the top.
Okay, I'm going to order this. Better than Black Gates.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Really? I think it's better than Black Gate.
No.
Okay, well, that's nice, but it's not true.
That's bad.
Sit down.
Poor Rise of Theden.
It's at I think it's probably above Shire. That's probably the only.
Well, I mean, Shire's in the fucking next one down, so it's not issues there.
Oh, Shire's an average.
How the fuck that happened?
Shire's at the very bottom of average, so I don't know why we're saying it's
in my head, somehow we put that Legion in. I'm definitely not drunk, guys. It's fine.
We put both of these in solid.
Yeah, that's outrageous. That's so bad. We shouldn't have done.
Well, it's there now. Good.
No.
Right. Well, I guess that brings us to the end. Yeah. Good. Right. Remember to hit that bell.
Ding, ding, ding.
Nice.
Very nice. That was a lamp, in case that was wondering.
Yeah. Don't do anything else though. Just hit the bell. Don't like or subscribe.
Don't subscribe. Just ding that bell. Ding that bell.
Do we want them to do anything else?
No. I mean,
what now?
Should we get a Patreon? Should we think Patreon is the next step?
We need
OnlyFans? OnlyFans? Is that the way forward?
I'll leave the OnlyFans up to you. you can put Elrond on OnlyFans.
It's OnlyFans, but it's only painted miniatures.
Yeah, and it's feet pictures of Elrond. It's
that's all it is.
Feet pictures.
Oh no!
There we go. Our financial woes are solved.
Well, on that bombshell, it is goodbye from Mayor and OT.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a fantastic week.
Ding that bell.
Ding that bell.
Bye, everyone.